Good morning and welcome back to Mining Stock Daily, everybody. We are going to head down to Colombia because there's a number of news items, not only out of our friends at Collective Mining, which trade on the TSX and the NYSE with the symbol CNL, but Colombia is just wrapping up a very important presidential election, closely watched. And so we're going to ask Ari Sussman of Collective what this means, not only for the company, but for the mining industry as a whole. And then we will dig down to some of the nitty gritty of what's happening at Guayabales as well. So Ari, good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning, Trevor. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah. Listen, it was a big week in Colombia. I guess you can call it the right-leaning candidate has come out successful. Mining investors are naturally wondering what this means for the sector. So from your perspective, on the ground, how do you see the new administration affecting investment, permitting, and maybe overall operating environments for companies like Collective?
Well, look, the candidate who will be the president now, come August 7th, named Abelardo de la Espriella, has won the election, and I think this is huge for Colombia. I mean, the international media is pinning him as kind of a cross between Milei and Bukele. He's pro-growth and equally important for Colombia, pro-strong security. Okay, he has vowed to take out the trash, so to speak, in terms of crime, to get things flowing, safely, especially in the south of the country where that problem persists. It's not in the north where we operate, but that's going to be good. And he has already outlined a very strong pro mining policy where legal mining is going to be strongly endorsed and encouraged, and illegal mining is going to be treated like it should be, illegal, hence criminal, and he's going to put a stop to it while focusing on formalization. So, for those companies that have small scale mining, if those are mom and pop type miners that have been operating there for a generation more, or at least 10 years anyways, they will be very strongly protected. I think that's a winning model. We helped to devise that in my former company at Continental Gold for the country. But I think it's going to be very good. And look, perception is everything.
Right.
As we know in developing countries, and you're going to see a huge amount of capital want to move in to Colombia. Last point I will make, Trevor, it also doesn't hurt that the incoming president holds an American passport as well. Okay, so he
Mhm.
is dual or maybe a tri passport holder. I think he might hold Italy as well, but that's not so relevant to this conversation. So he is close to Marco Rubio. He's close to the Trump administration. We all know the Trump administration is now, it looks like Iran is settling back down, I hope, and is going to be focusing on its own backyard. And Colombia has always had an overwhelmingly strong relationship with the United States, where you and I live. And so I'm
Right.
looking forward to that. And I think we're going to see some very big things happen in Colombia for mining in the next 4 years.
Ari, I remember, I think it was a couple years ago. You and I have been chatting frequently on the podcast for a couple years now, and one of the things that I would think back on, especially recently with this election, is when I would ask you kind of about the cycles of on again, off again of mining in Colombia, and I remember you mentioning, there will be a political time frame where things will not move very well, but then that will shift into a time frame where things will move well and be effective for the sector. And it seems like maybe this week is like the starting point of that cycle, having good timing for mining exploration and development in Colombia, as the framework and permitting process will be in your favor. So am I on the right track here? Are we in that cycle where things are looking upward for anybody,
So,
you and your peers?
well, okay. So look, from our perspective, so permitting in Colombia, so remember we've talked about, Trevor, that mining is governed by law. So no one president can come in and say, I'm going to change mining. I'm going to make permitting worse. I'm going to make it better. And actually, permitting was flowing just fine under the exiting administration. I mean, Cordoba Minerals got licensed maybe 6 weeks ago for an open pit copper gold mine. To all the naysayers that constantly ask me about, can you permit open pits in Colombia? This is just a sidebar. Well, guess what? That was an open pit copper gold mine that got fully permitted. Okay, so and I don't know where that nonsense came from because most of the mines in Colombia are open pit, but that's always been there. So I just wanted to get that out there. But what I suspect will happen, and obviously I don't have any insight. I'm not with the government, right? But under previous very pro mining, pro business governments, there were strategic projects initiative put forward. Okay, like we have here in the United States or even in Canada, and I'm going to bet that we're going to see that in Colombia. So this isn't for mining specifically; it'll be for
Mm,
infrastructure things. So, but mining will fall into that, oil and gas, anything else related to infrastructure, and I think we're going to see some kind of a strategic process. A strategic initiative get put into place, and projects that fall within that will have the government accompany them to ensure their success in getting permits or whatever they need to do and make sure it happens in an expedited fashion. So right now, Colombia takes about 1 year to license a mine. That's already, in the top 1% of the world in terms of speed. I don't think you're going to see it go to half a year, but I think you're going to see projects advance that need to advance and ensure that they get that answer from the environmental authorities in that 1 year. And hopefully, if the science is sound, those projects are going to get positive outcomes. It's very bullish. And let's not forget how the prospectivity of Colombia is really second to none. Right. I mean, I like
yeah,
Guyana too. I like Suriname. I like these. I think they have good potential, but they don't have the Andy Mountain chain coming through them. Right. Their
right.
potential is limited to some types of gold deposits, and that's it. Right. I mean, we've got copper potential. We've got nickel. We've got huge gold deposit potential, and it is untapped in Colombia. And I bet you're going to see big money pour in to the country in the early stage exploration phase now, and it's going to be good times ahead to be in Colombia.
Uh, Does the does this new election or the results of the election does it change your strategy with Guayabales at all? I
Well,
know you're on the hook for that resource estimate next year, or you've told me that. No more kicking the can.
Trevor, in fact, look, I think you're going to see that resource come out quicker than mid next
Okay.
year. I haven't updated the
All right.
guidance yet, and I'm not updating it to a specific time frame. But one of the things that we want to do is we think we're going to be in a position to apply for the permit for a mine at Apollo at the beginning of Q3 of 2027. So
Mm,
you will see a resource come out earlier than that, obviously. So well ahead of mid next year, which is the current timeline, that will feed that permit application. Okay, so that's coming sooner rather than later. So
cool.
yes, we're going to be applying for a license. Why are we doing this? Because when we look at our peer group companies, and this isn't to do with the government coming in, right? I mean, we were doing this no matter who won, but when we look at the peer group list of competitors, which is dwindling, okay, in size, I mean, two were just picked off, right? Rupert and G2 Goldfields were just taken. Um, who can permit a mine prior to 2030 in that list? We're kind of there, maybe standing alone.
All right.
Possibly Oh My, in Guyana would be the other one, maybe, and that's it. So we're going to go permit that mine. 1 year timeline. So if we apply on schedule, like we're hoping for Q3 2027, mid 2028, we're licensed. By mid 2028, we'll have a second resource update out with a PEA, and we'll be very advanced on a feasibility study. And I have a feeling we can complete all of these steps by the end of 2028, go to the board, construction decision, for end of
Mhm.
2028 and literally start constructing in 2029, which means production, a long way of saying production could happen as early as late 2030.
There
Okay.
you go.
That is a pretty quick timeline for mining. Okay. It's
That's right.
2026, right? So
That's
if we
right.
can be producing in 4.5 years from today, That is attractive, and getting a license will be a key one. I know we're accelerating projects in the United States and Canada, on this critical mineral push, but the reality is you cannot fast track permitting anywhere
Right.
near 1 year. Right?
Yeah.
This
Right.
is
Yeah.
really exciting, and if we've got a supportive government, cost of capital, if we are to build the mine and not sell the company in the future, cost of capital will be attractive under a good government, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's a big
Right.
one.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So people listening, there's your I guess informal 3.5 year runway for for Apollo. But there has been new news as recently here regarding Apollo, and you put out an update on the project and that deposit, including kind of what's going on with that exploration adit that you and I have chatted about. To get good connection to that ramp zone at depth, though, so geologically speaking, you're well endowed to get to that access. You provided that exploration beyond reducing drill costs. What does that underground access allow your technical team to accomplish that simply isn't possible from surface right now?
Well, we're going to start that construction in Q4 of this year. I mean, we announced that recently, okay, and that is
Yep.
on track. The risks associated with that are being reduced very quickly. There are external risks, like can we get explosives, because that's controlled by the military in Colombia. We've had very positive steps in that regard in terms of getting approval, so that looks good. Um, that is going to be an exploration drift that will ultimately serve as a haulage line for a future mine. But as from an exploration perspective, man, it goes right by trap, and kind of we have to only develop 500 meters, maybe less, and then we can cross cut right into the trap system. I think that's a no brainer. The problem with trap is the topography to drill it from surface is tough to get pads in to drill. We'll
Mhm.
eliminate that from depth. We then have to continue for a total of 3 kilometers to reach the edge of Apollo, so that's going to take 2 full years. Okay, but on the way, anything between Trap and Plutus/Apollo has never been looked at all. Okay, we know we're in a prolific belt. Why not? Maybe we'll find a new deposit. Who knows? On the way, I'm betting we'll run into mineralization, but that's going to be exciting. And obviously, we are motivated to get to ramp, right? For good
Mhm.
reason. That is the engine of the Apollo system. That is the high grade, and you're going to want to produce from ramp in year one, because that is going to drive the IRR and the NPV of the project, because it's going to make capex payback quick, right, with high grade,
Right.
and get the ounces up in year one. Right, you want your production to be front end loaded, not back end loaded in any mine, because that helps pay for everything quickly and generate cash. So we're motivated. That's going to start. That is good. Um, Not to discount the top 1,000 meters of Apollo from surface. I'm starting to think that the idea of a very small open pit might morph into a not so small open pit. I don't want to say a big pit, but something with some meat on it. And
Sure.
and we've had some drill results recently that are corroborating that, which we can talk about now if you'd like.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That would be the oxide discovery at Northern Apollo. When people read oxide, they think immediately super simple heap leach, low cost processing. But what makes this discovery and this intercept strategically important for the broader Apollo system?
Okay, so let's paint the picture of what Apollo looks like. You've seen it, Trevor. It sits in a bowl.
Mhm.
Okay, and the west side of the bowl, if you were to build an open pit and you were to take the pit wall over the west side of the bowl, I can tell you that the rock over the west side of that top upper lip of the bowl is barren, okay, or near barren. So that means you're going to have a problem with stripping ratio. Yeah, and that's why we always said there's only going to be a small pit at Apollo. It needs to stay, the west side at least needs to stay within the bowl. Well, okay, when we had earlier drilling, that meant maybe a pit that could go down, I don't know, 100 meters, very small, okay? Well, this drilling now, which this oxide drilling, all of this is to the east, okay, not to the west. And so as we find more of this, it's starting to allow us to think about shifting the center of the pit eastward, meaning we won't have to go over the western lip of that bowl. We'll maintain that as the top of the pit on the west side to avoid
Mhm.
having all that waste, but we'll be able to take a pit deeper because it's moving eastward. Okay, and these oxide intercepts, so whether we heap leach them or just process them as part of a larger pit, I have no idea at this point. But that all those intercepts are well over a gram equivalent, right? I don't know what a cutoff grade for a pit is, but I think kind of a standard today everyone throws around is 0.3 of a gram.
Right. Right.
Right. So that is highly profitable stuff that's free milling. And if we continue to find more of that in the East, we might be looking at a decent sized pit. I don't want to speculate on how many ounces, but I don't know, 1 to 2 million ounces maybe in a pit. And if a lot of that oxide gold comes in as we drill these shallow holes on the eastern side, I don't know what we could get the strip ratio down to, but I think we can get it down to a very attractive number, especially when we look at peer projects. Let's keep in mind that at even $4,000 gold, when you look at other projects out there, we can look at Oko West of G Mining, the old
Hmm.
Reunion. I mean, that strip ratio is 6.8 to 1. There's Fuerte Metals, which I believe they changed the name to Talamine Mining in the Yukon recently, but
Oh, something
they
like
had a
that.
name change. That's that's
Yeah.
that's almost 7 to 1 strip ratio. Okay, Valentine, which is now almost Equinox. So you mean it's Equinox merging with Orla, soon to be just Equinox, I guess.
Yes.
That is an 11 to 1 strip ratio. The old probe that got taken out by, was it Fresnillo, I believe, bought it in Canada. That was nine
Uh-huh.
to one. I can tell you right now, just from looking at, we're going to be well below those numbers. Okay, if we on a pit strip ratio, we're not. I'm going to bet we're below 5 to 1, and if we continue to find more of this stuff, maybe we'll get down to 2 to 1 or even lower eventually. It's pretty exciting, and so if we could take a nice pit. So if you envision production here, obviously I can't give a guess on the ounces per year or grade because we don't have a resource out yet or any economic studies. But if you envision an open pit being mined simultaneously with ramp, okay, when you cut a ribbon on a mine, it's not hard to envision this being a very big annual producer in terms of gold equivalent content, right? It's
Hmm.
it's exciting. It's gonna be a big gold mine, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So everything continues to move forward. A lot of development. You typically have a couple surprises up your sleeve with exploration at Apollo and your other deposits within the portfolio of Guayabales, Ari. So really exciting 6 months. Are we going to get a lot more drill results in the final half of this year, you think?
13 rigs now drilling
I'd say so. Okay, a
for
lot more.
metal. Okay, so the answer is yes. I will caution that the lab has slowed down, but we use the lab at Peru. It's gotten overwhelmed in terms of companies
Hmm.
wanting their core assay first. But that doesn't matter. This delay is ending. The delays happen to us right now. We're about a month from our last drill holes, give or take. So we should have, I hope, news next week. We should get more assays, but and then you won't notice there was a delay. We'll start to have them again every two to
Sure.
three weeks, and we'll be full of news into year end. 7 of
Okay.
those rigs are on ramp, by the way.
Oh,
So there's a
great.
lot going on at ramp.
Yeah. Okay. Higher frequency of drill results coming out. Last thing I just want to chat with you, and it's really a big overarching theme. I think maybe puts a ribbon on the conversation here, Ari. You did announce the appointment of Josue Romanos as vice president of projects. Companies don't usually strengthen project development teams this early unless they're preparing for something bigger, but you just kind of laid out that runway for the next 3.5 years potentially. What does this edition say about where Collective is in its evolution?
Trevor, I learned from experience the hard way. The earlier you can put these senior people in, the better. The
Mhm.
model of coming out with a definitive feasibility study on an asset and then starting to go higher doesn't work. Okay, so having these people in now, that way you can iterate a future mine over and over again, simulate it, find the errors, improve on it, will ensure, or at least do everything you can to ensure that when you actually do go build a mine, you won't run into the perennial problem that we've been plagued with of enormous capex, opex overruns, timeline mistakes, etc. So we're being smart, I hope, and we have the team to build in place now. Okay, led by Ned Jalil, the CEO. I'm the executive chairman, and we'll be ready to either build or to sell the company. We'll see what happens over the next kind of 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. One last question before I ask.
Please.
Just because of the volatility in the market, gold taking a hit, hitting $4,000 an ounce, and obviously we're seeing volatility spill over into the mining equities. Any sort of sign of insider buying of the stock as it's kind of been, correcting here since those recent highs earlier this spring?
Not yet, but we're in blackout for a number of reasons. But look, I'm as far as the industry goes, for what it's worth, I started putting my personal money to work in the precious metal space yesterday, and I am
Okay.
buying today. Okay, we were oversold enough. The correction is deep enough. It's actually followed a pretty typical pattern when you look at historical corrections. There's nothing unusual about this one. I don't want to say there's a bottom today or yesterday. Obviously, it's gone down today, but it's compelling now, and things are looking attractive. Sentiment is washed out. I'm getting a lot of panic calls, Trevor, from institutions, right, which is a good
Okay.
sign, and that's what's compelled me to start to put money to work. I'm excited. I'm willing to be down 20% over the next week. It doesn't faze me. I'm an investor, not a trader. But I like what I'm seeing out there in a number of names.
All right. It does take a strong stomach lining if you're going to be dabbling in these markets. So,
Oh, buy. What happened to buy low, sell high? If it was if the shopping mall put on a 50% off sale, we'd be lining up in the cars and out the doors to get in, right?
that's right. That's
Somehow
right.
we don't do that in the stock market, right?
That's very true.
Yeah,
It's so emotional. All right, Ari, thanks so much for your time. Good to see you.
you
We'll
too.
talk again the next couple of weeks, and we'll probably see some more drill results coming down the pipeline here that we'll be able to chat about. Collective Mining does trade on the TSX and the NYSE with CNL. I am a shareholder, and Collective is a partner of the podcast. All right, Ari, take care. Have a good rest of your week.
You too, Trevor.
The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.